afternoon. Gabe DeArmond here, Drew King on the other side of your screen, or if you're listening on the podcast, which we'll do later, there is no screen. So you can just pretend we're both in the same room. This is the PowerMizzou.com podcast / YouTube show, whatever. We're going to talk some Missouri basketball for the next 30 minutes or so. And every time we do this because James Carlton State Farm Insurance helps us out and allows us to do it. Frankly, some timely tie-ins to James Carlton. His name has been dropped on our board quite a few times today. Just in case you might be out there needing auto insurance for some reason and you don't currently have it, get in touch with James Carlton. Not saying that's the case in any particular instance, but if you're out there and you don't have insurance, carltoninsurance.net, 314-961-4800, facebook.com, Carlton Insurance. If you are over the age of 70 or for some other reason still on Facebook, you can find him there. James also wants to help out Mizzou's efforts on the court, on the football field, in the NIL game. So everybody that gets in touch with him and gets a quote, tells him they heard about him on PowerMizzou, he's going to donate $20 to Every True Tiger Foundation, Mizzou's preferred NIL collective. If you guys have comments, questions, anything you want to talk about, put it in the queue. We will get to them in the second part of the show. We're going to start out, Drew, talking about, I don't know, man. I've been thinking about it since last night. It was a weird game. After Noah Carter's dunk to start the game, there didn't really just seem to be too much flow or energy to that whole thing to me.
Yeah, I think part of it was, the crowd was definitely a lot smaller than it has been in the past couple of games, and it was kind of hard to get up for that one. But something I pointed out after the game was it definitely feels like Mizzou plays to the level of its competition. So, we'll see their best performances when they go up against Illinois and Kentucky and Arkansas and Iowa State. But if they're going up against...
Not so much Kansas or Alabama.
But... Correct. There's exceptions to the rule, of course. Yeah. But like Ole Miss, South Carolina, LSU, SEMO, you're not always going to get the best brand of Mizzou basketball in those types of games.
And the overriding factor is, for the most part, they have done enough to win, right? A lot more than they haven't, which is good. But it's interesting. It kind of leads into, they beat South Carolina last night 83-74. It was like, I wasn't sure that game was in hand until there was about 3 or 4 minutes left, right? It would get to 7, and then South Carolina would cut it to 1, and then it would get back to 6, and South Carolina would cut it to 2, and they didn't go up more than 8 until about 4 minutes left.
Yeah, I think that's kind of when they stepped up on defense a lot more, and started really closing down some of the open three-pointers that they were giving up. I think that's kind of what made the difference when they were able to pull away. And on the other side, Lamont Paris, South Carolina's head coach, talked about how to win a game like that, you have to string together a couple of stops in a row, and South Carolina wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, and Missouri was, I thought, largely because South Carolina just started missing some shots. I want to talk about what it means big picture in a minute, but what was your take? Because Dennis Gates' takeaway from that game last night, to me, seemed to mostly be, hey, we're focusing on a big picture thing. We're trying to get better at some things in game, and sometimes, hey, South Carolina just made a bunch of shots tonight. But when everybody seems to make a bunch of shots against you, that's no longer about them all the time. I think maybe I'm a little bit more concerned about Missouri's defense than a lot of people seem to be.
I think Ken Pom would actually agree with you. Ken Pom has them at 185 in defensive rating right now. And so, yeah, but that's been kind of an issue all season, is teams tend to shoot above their average when they go up against Missouri. And the Tigers just kind of outscore them, right? That's kind of the game plan going into every game. And so most teams aren't going to have the type of firepower to keep up with Missouri. Some teams are going to be good enough defensively to slow them down, like Mississippi State was, but yeah, it's definitely kind of an issue when every single team is able to score against you.
And I understand it's not every team. I mean, Mississippi State was 3 for 20 from 3-point range. So not every team, but there are times where it seems like the other team hits 6 or 7 threes in a row almost every game. And I know that's exaggerating the fact. But I just like this team is, I think they're going to the tournament. They're better than we thought. Like you always have to preface it with that. But I just can see when this season ends, I already feel like I know exactly how it's going to end, right? It's going to end because somebody shot 54% from 3-point range and they beat Missouri like 91-87 in a game where you're going, if they could just get like one stop or 2 rebounds, they would be going on, but they're not because they didn't.
I'm surprised you don't think it's gonna end with like Demoy Hodge going 30 for 30 from outside and them like raising up the trophy and cutting down the nets.
Look, if they get to the national title game, Demoy Hodge will have 74 points on 19 threes. I don't think there's any question about that. But I'm operating under the assumption that this team is not winning the national title. I could be wrong, but that's where I'll start. Real quick, do want to start with this, and Jared has the he's tossing us a little super chat, and I appreciate that. And he is going to put $5 more on Gerard Hamilton, the 2.5 point favorite over Drew in the next basketball game.
So Gerard and I are supposed to play tonight. Actually, it won't be a one-on-one game. There will be other people there. But listen, I understand. Some of the love that Gerard is getting. I'm telling people, like, do not sleep on me, okay? Like, this is not going to be an easy win for Gerard.
I feel like at some point in the offseason, we need to get a charity one-on-one basketball game between you guys and like raise money for, well, just for me, really. I don't know. I mean, raise money for a good cause.
You are the charity.
Right. We could raise it from my NIL fund. So we're talking, and you guys, I do see we've got a few questions built up, and we'll get to those. And if you have some more questions, please, anything you want to talk about, mostly Mizzou basketball related, but if you want to talk about Drew and Gerard's one-on-one game, if you want to drop your Super Bowl picks, whatever you want to do in the comments, do those. I can sort through them and use the ones we want to use. But we're talking about how Mizzou plays to the level of its competition. And so these predictive metrics that everybody pays attention to, ourselves included, largely Ken Pom and the net ranking. A big part of that is not just who you play and if you beat them, but also, do you beat them by 2? Do you beat them by 19? Do you lose by 2? Do you lose by 19? Like that factors into some of this. These metrics don't like Missouri as much as the people who project the tournament fields do. Most people who are projecting the tournament right now have Missouri on probably that 7, 8. A couple people have them at a 6. A couple people probably have them at a 9, but somewhere in that 6 to 9 range. The Ken Pom and the net, if they were doing it, like Missouri would be more like in that play-in game territory or in danger of missing the tournament. So, like, do you think that's a concern? Is that something that should worry Missouri fans at this point? Am I too quick to put this team in the tournament?
I don't think you're too quick to put them in the tournament. I saw a tweet from Palm from CBS, and he said, he was talking to the College Hoops Chat radio show. He said, when you hear someone from the committee talk about what is important to them, there is a stock answer. Who did you play? Where did you play them? Who did you beat? And who beat you? They never say how much did you win or lose by, right? And so if we're judging Mizzou based on that, they're in the tournament 10 times out of 10, right? I think what the predictive metrics tell you is that it might not be as high of a seed as most people are thinking, right? I think a 6 seed is a little bit generous based on what the net and Ken Pom say. And so,
I think we've also reached a point where we start to take like the net ranking as gospel. Like we think the S curve just goes by the net. And that doesn't I mean, Texas A&M last year was like 36 and didn't get in. And there were teams down in the 50s and 60s who did get in. So it's not like the committee sits down and says, okay, who's the top 64 or whatever in the net, and let's just kind of work with that. I mean, they do look at more than that.
Absolutely, yeah. And so like, and you look at Mizzou's resume, like it's 4 ranked wins or 3 quad 1 wins, and you're also undefeated against Q2, Q3, and Q4 teams. Like that's a really impressive resume. So obviously, like the non quad 1 wins don't count as much, but they do count, right? Like they still count for something. And being undefeated in those categories is still worth getting an NCAA tournament bid.
Yeah, and I mean, I went through a bunch of the numbers in Missouri's kind of resume on Monday morning, and this is obviously before the South Carolina game and before Auburn lost to A&M last night. But Missouri's the 2 programs that most compare to Missouri right now are Duke and Auburn. And I don't think there's anybody saying Duke and Auburn wouldn't be in the tournament today.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. I think another comparison would kind of be Arkansas, right? Because they've had a couple of big time wins, but they've also had some bad losses. And I think Bracket Matrix has them and Mizzou pretty close, right? I think Arkansas is a 9 seed on Bracket Matrix right now, which is kind of the aggregate of all the bracket forecasts. And Mizzou's a number 8. So based on the teams that have similar resumes, like everyone else is also in the tournament.
Right. And the beauty of all of this is we have 3.5 weeks left in the regular season, right? They have 7 games. Based on what happened last night, which is Missouri beating South Carolina and Arkansas suddenly looking like what everybody thought Arkansas was going to be 3 months ago, and going into Rupp and just kind of humiliating Kentucky in the last 10 minutes or so of that game. I mean, Missouri is now a half game behind Florida and a game behind Auburn and Kentucky for 4th place in the SEC. Like if they could go to Auburn and win next week, it is conceivable that, hey, this double bye is back in play for Missouri.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we have 6 or 7
left.
SEC. Yeah. So there is a runway for Mizzou to keep moving up and climb into that top 5. But, there are some road games in the mix. And so those are going to be kind of tough for them to pull out.
Yeah, I mean, they're at Tennessee and at Auburn. We'll talk a little bit about those here in a minute. And then they have A&M at home. So that's the top 3 teams in the league. Like, I'm not sure how many fans realize that Texas A&M is 9-2 and in 3rd place in the Southeastern Conference. Like, that is not by any means a bad loss. And even Florida, I mean, is 6-5. They are kind of right on the cut line for the tournament. That Missouri's losses are good quality losses. And Tennessee and Auburn, even if you lose to them, I think those predictive metrics, I think those rankings will improve over the next week, even if Missouri goes 0-2, unless they go do something like get beat 80-40 in Knoxville. That could change it, obviously.
Yeah. No, but if they, keep it competitive against those 2 teams, I mean, we saw them, like, they just beat South Carolina. They didn't beat them by as much as Ken Palm projected them to, and they fell in the rankings, right? Well, you can move back up in the rankings even with a loss by, keeping the margin a little bit closer.
And that's why really their tournament fate is almost certainly going to be decided down to the seed, I think, in the next 7 games, because a lot of times, and sometimes I've fallen into this trap too, going, okay, well, you got the regular season, but then you got that first round in the SEC tournament to go get another win. The bottom of the SEC sucks. Beating Vanderbilt, beating Ole Miss, one of those teams in the first round, it's not going to help you. Like if you're the 5 seed and you face South Carolina or Georgia in your first game, you're not going to get anything out of that. Like winning that game is not getting you in the tournament. Losing it could knock you out, but winning it isn't getting you in.
Right. No, that's absolutely correct. Like we just saw again, they beat South Carolina and moved down in the rankings. Like that can't go unnoticed. And so, I think SEC tournament win doesn't do all that much for you in the long in the grand scheme of things. Yeah.
2 or 3 obviously could, but
Right.
just the one doesn't. So one last thing on the South Carolina game. Did you watch that game at all last night and think, how is South Carolina this bad? Like, I mean, they did not look to me like a 1-10 team in the SEC.
No,
which, by the way, the only wins at Kentucky, which makes no sense.
Yeah, that was a weird game. But no, I thought South Carolina actually looked, like it had some potential. Obviously Gigi Jackson, he's a great player, gonna go to the NBA after this season. And
well, I don't know. He looked like he was really enjoying being around his teammates and his coaches, and he seems fully invested in everything that's going on at South Carolina basketball.
He actually did say on that same Instagram live where he's like, I don't know why I don't have the ball in my hands. He actually did say, I might stay another year, which I didn't
know.
I
mean, my favorite part of the game last night was when I forget if it was a turnover or a timeout, but like Gigi Jackson was throwing a tantrum on the court that somebody did not throw him the ball wide open on the wing.
Well, no, the guy got called for a travel.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, pass me the ball, and Lamont Paris benched him after that too.
Yeah.
But so obviously Gigi had a good night. Hayden Brown had like a career night against Missouri. I think South Carolina would have won a few more games if he played like that all the time. But yeah, I mean, South Carolina, not a bad team.
Yeah. So we'll get to your guys' questions here in just a minute, but real quick, at Tennessee on Saturday, at Auburn on Tuesday. So Tuesday, is that correct?
Auburn is on Tuesday. Yes.
Okay. Any chance they come out with one of these two?
So Ken Palm has a 12% chance against Tennessee. That's going to be the tougher of the two.
Tennessee's good, right?
Yes. Auburn, though, been slipping a little bit lately, right? They've gone 4. They've won.
They've lost 4 out of 5, and they have Alabama on Saturday. Yeah.
Yes, and the one win was Georgia, and so I think you're catching Auburn kind of at a good time based on how they've been playing recently. You're still playing them on the road, which has not been good for Missouri all season long. But I'd say that of the two, that's the one that I think they could pick up a win over potentially.
Yeah. Tennessee's the number 1 defensive team in the country. We understand Missouri's struggles shooting away from home. It would be surprising to me if they go into Thompson Bowling and get to 70 points. I would be stunned if that happened. So the Auburn one, to me, this might be counterintuitive. I think it's better for Missouri if Auburn can find a way to beat Alabama on Saturday, because Auburn right now is sliding back toward the bubble. They're not on it yet, but they're sliding that way. If they lose to Alabama, Missouri is going to go in there on Tuesday night, and Auburn is probably going to know, hey, if we lose this game, like, we're in danger of missing the turn. Like, I think you would get desperate, fired up Auburn on Tuesday night in that case. But if they beat Alabama, there might be a little bit of, okay, good. Everything's okay. We're in, no worries. And maybe you catch them a little fat and happy from beating the number 2 team in the country.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happen. And Auburn isn't a bad team either, right? Like they're still like very solidly in the top 40 or 30 even teams in the country. So, but I think the Alabama game could definitely play a role in here, and everybody does not play well against Alabama either. So, I think Alabama, that game will be important for sure.
I think Missouri-Tennessee will be a tough watch. I think Missouri-Auburn could be really fun to watch. Bruce Pearl likes to play a real similar style to Dennis Gates. I don't think his team will shy away from running with Missouri. I think that's easily a game where you're probably going to have to score 80, maybe 85 or 90 to win it. So I think that'll be fun. So that's the week ahead for Mizzou basketball. We're hopeful we'll talk to Dennis Gates and maybe a player or two here either Thursday or Friday morning. We don't really know about that yet, but we'll get you to your guys' questions.
Well, and I'll say this real quick. The South Carolina game, I feel like that was the first time, or one of the first times that we've seen a team really go shot for shot against Mizzou up until the last 6 minutes or so, and that might be the case going up against Auburn as well. That's a team that could actually keep pace offensively with Mizzou.
Yeah, for sure. Josh Randall asks, update on the team's floor and ceiling. What do you think, Drew?
So I came out with this opinion last week, and I'm kind of sticking to it now. I think the ceiling is kind of a 5 seed. You'd have to pick up a win over Auburn or Tennessee. You'd have to go 2-0 against Texas A&M and Mississippi State, and then win out the rest of the games there. The floor would be something bad happens, an injury potentially. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen, but. And the team kind of goes into a tailspin because of it. So that would be like, going 2-4, maybe
2-5, yeah.
Yeah, 2-5, and falling to probably an 11 seed or maybe
2-5. I think they're probably out of the tournament.
Really, you think so?
Yeah, I mean that would leave them 20 and 11 with at least 1 and probably 2 bad losses down the stretch, honestly. And so kind of along those lines, I think everybody will look at Tennessee and Auburn and, hey, this is a huge week because you could get a quad 1 win and all that. This is not the biggest week of the season to me. The biggest week is that next week when you have Texas A&M and Mississippi State at home. And those are like A&M by that point, I don't know. They'll probably still be quad 2 games because they're at home. I don't think either of those teams will be in the top 30. But like they're teams that, look, they've already shown they can beat you. So they're not automatic wins, but they're also the games that at home, good teams and NCAA tournament teams win those games.
Yes. Yeah, no, that like those two, I said, with this past road game against Mississippi State and the 2 that they've got coming up at home, you want to go 2-1 in those 3 just to kind of maintain status quo, right? And so if you end up dropping one of those or you end up dropping both of those, you're going to see them fall down in the seeding a little bit.
Right. And because if you do win both of those, then you still get Ole Miss at home. We're kind of counting that as a win, right? But then what that means to me is LSU and Georgia, all you got to do is go win one of those, right? You don't need to win both of them because 4 and 3 down the stretch.
Rest some guys in one of those games, right? And keep them fresh for the tournament that comes up.
Well, yeah, we're going to get to resting guys here in just a minute with our next question. But yeah, basically, if you lose to, if you lose to A&M or Mississippi State at home, really, what you've done is completely eliminate your margin for error. And like you could still get in and all that, but you just aren't leaving yourself a lot of room. So Clayton wants to know if the energy had anything to do with Isaiah Mosley. It seems there's more excitement when he's on the floor. First of all, I will say maybe from fans, like I think it's gotten a little bit to the point where it's almost like Isaiah Mosley and then, also here's the rest of the team. It's become unpopular. Like you can't really criticize Mosley. And I said, he was bad at Mississippi State. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He did not play well. Now, a lot of other guys didn't play well. He wasn't the only one, but he had 4 turnovers and didn't play very well in that game. And then, so I got to the arena with about, 40, 45 minutes tip off. And I walked in and the first thing you said, I don't think Isaiah's out there warming up. I thought we were done with this. I really did. And the irritating part is we can't say why we're not done with it. But at this point, I'm going to speculate a little because they're giving us nothing. Dennis Gates isn't going to talk about it. And that's fine. That's his prerogative. But everybody else is talking about it. Whatever caused him to not play last night, to me, that has to be separate than whatever caused him to not play most of the month of December, right? Like, I don't think all of a sudden just whatever was going on then popped back up and caused him to miss a game. Because if that's the case, then I guess we just go into every game and go, I don't know. I don't know. Because I thought we were to the point where we just assumed he was going to play.
Yeah, and it confused me too because Dennis kind of grouped him in with Trey Gomillion and Ronnie DeGray. And the difference is those two players are injured, right? Like
And Dennis has not hid that from us. He's told
right,
us that.
right. And he's saying, those two want to play, but I had to make a decision to sit them. And then he says, Isaiah wanted to play. I had to make a decision to sit him. Well, Isaiah was on the
Which,
floor warming up and like had his warm up stuff on. So we were told he was available for the game.
yeah. And by the way, Dennis said that about 6 minutes after I asked him, and he said that he and Mosley talked and agreed it would just be great to take that night off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I assume by agreed he means I said you're going to take the night off, and Isaiah said okay, because he doesn't have a choice because he's the player and not the coach. But I don't think it was this. Maybe we'll just coach. Maybe I'll just chill out this one. I don't think that's how that conversation went.
But to go back to the original question, I do think there was, Isaiah does bring a little bit of extra energy, especially from the fans since he's from Columbia. It does seem like there's a couple of extra decibels when they cheer for him. But yeah, I don't know that was necessarily the reason that there was less energy from the team itself.
Yeah. And I don't think it's a distraction to the team. I don't think it's a reason that maybe they didn't play quite as well as you wanted them to. I think we all spend a lot more time thinking about this than they do, to be quite honest.
I agree.
They're gonna go play with whoever's suited up and ready to play that night. And look at the talk today, and Dave Matter mentioned it in his column. There is a file on CaseNet where in mid-December, Isaiah, there was some sort of, I guess I'll call it a fender bender for lack of a better way to know how to describe it, but basically in a parking lot. And I believe the charges are like left the scene and didn't have proof of insurance. Now, this is not like a felony. This is not even a misdemeanor. It is listed as a municipal ordinance violation, which is, it's just not. I mean, I can't say whether it is or is not why he didn't play last night. We don't know either way. Who knows? So I guess Drew, you'll show up in Missouri
Tennessee.
plays at Thompson Bowling at 5 o'clock. You'll get there about 4 o'clock, and you'll just see.
Yep.
We just don't know.
That'll be the case.
Okay. So, and this kind of continues this theme. JMKLF, do you think Aiden Shaw proved Gates made a mistake last night by not playing him against Mississippi State? So I joked with you and a couple other guys last night. I said, I think maybe the day before the game, Dennis Gates ends practice with some sort of competition, and just the two guys who finished last just don't get to play the next day. Like that is how, Mo Diarra, Caleb Brown, Aiden Shaw, Isaiah Mosley, Ronnie DeGray. A lot of these guys have just yo-yoed it, they play and then all of a sudden we just don't see them for 2 games. And then they play again. So maybe they lost a game of knockout the day before practice, right? I don't know. And I'm making a joke, obviously. And Dennis has pushed all the right buttons. He's done a great job. He's got a shot at SEC Coach of the Year. So don't take any of this as but it's kind of curious, right? And I thought Aiden Shaw turned that game around last night in the last 5 minutes of the first half. I thought his contribution was that important.
Yeah, no, and that one-handed alley-oop, oh my gosh. Yeah. I wish I could do anything as good as Aiden Shaw is able to dunk a basketball.
You would be a huge favorite over Gerard if you had that move in your arsenal. I'll say that.
Correct. No, I think with the Mississippi State game, though, I don't think Aiden Shaw necessarily is the difference between a win or a loss there. Right. Mabor Majak, only played 5 minutes in that game, and so if you give Aiden Shaw those minutes. By the way, Mabor Majak was +2 in those minutes. He was not a negative. So I don't know that Aiden Shaw could have made that much bigger of an impact.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think it's look, maybe it was just a message that needed to be sent, and maybe that's why Shaw played well last night. Who knows, right? Without being, and Dennis likes to frequently remind us, you're not at practice. You don't hear what I say. You don't know, and we don't know. So right. So who knows what happened? am laughing as I read this question. Why does Mizzou act like guinea pigs when a shot goes up? They freeze and run like hell away when the other team has the ball. So I just see a shot going up and then like guys just scattering for the sidelines, right? But here's the weird, like, look, they're not tall. We know that. The box out technique at times is not ideal. But there just seem to be a lot of times they just have a hard time grabbing the basketball on a rebound to me. It's bizarre.
Part of that has to do with the lack of height, right? Like another team is able to poke the ball loose when they do get two hands on it. But yeah, when you read that question, I've had guinea pigs before, and so I thought he was going to say something about like they squeal when the ball comes off the rim.
I wasn't sure. I thought maybe it was indicating the really short limbs, right? So they couldn't rebound well because their arms are like an inch and a half long.
That's true.
It's like that'd be more T-Rex, I guess. But
yeah, well, yeah, I don't quite understand calling them guinea pigs, but you know,
it was enjoyable.
Yeah,
like the mice that scatter when you turn on the light. But,
yeah,
the rats. But yeah, there's a question about Trey Gomillion, and we don't. So Gates said on last Friday that Gomillion and Ronnie DeGray, he was going to hold out at least another week. So theoretically, I get the feeling Trey Gomillion is closer to playing than Ronnie DeGray is. Nobody has said that, but that's just kind of the way it seems to me, especially because Gomillion's dealing with a groin injury. It sounds like a knee with DeGray.
That's correct. Yeah. And they listed Gomillion as day-to-day when he first got injured. They haven't put any kind of designation on Ronnie's injury yet. So we're still waiting to hear back on what exactly it is. I think Gates said it was a knee sprain, but we don't know like how severe it is with him.
Yeah. Yeah. We got one last question here. It's a football question. What are the pros and cons of running spring practice so early? So I will give you the pros. The pros are that I will be off covering the NCAA tournament with Drew, so I don't have to cover spring football. That is the biggest pro that can exist in my life all year long because spring football is my least favorite thing. So it's fantastic. Gerard Hamilton has all of our spring football covered. Eli Drinkwitz likes it done before spring break. He says it gives guys a little more time to heal, gives the coaches a little bit of a break in April. So that's why he does it. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I don't really know. But on March 18th, which is the spring game, Drew and I will be somewhere between Sacramento, California, and Orlando, Florida. We assume, right? We just don't know exactly where. There are a number of places
somewhere between there.
Yeah. And based on my research, I hope it is neither of those two places. I hope it is any of the other locations we could possibly be going to, but we'll take a look. So, Drew, you are headed to Knoxville tomorrow, and then you just have like a couple days to hang out and explore Auburn, Alabama, because you're staying on the road before they play at Auburn on Tuesday night.
Yes, I gotta figure out some Super Bowl plans because I'm gonna be by myself on Sunday.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So, well, if anyone has recommendations for where to watch the Super Bowl, let me know.
Yeah, you got to get out of that hotel in Knoxville early so you can get to Auburn.
Yeah.
Before kickoff. Yeah. Well, so if you know your way around Auburn, let Drew know, tweet at him, email him, whatever. Let him know where to watch the Super Bowl. I will be, if news breaks on Sunday after 5 o'clock, then it's just not going to happen on PowerMizzou. We'll just wait till Monday morning for that. So, all right, Drew. So appreciate it, man. We're going to let you run, and maybe I'll see you before you drive to Knoxville. Maybe I won't. We wait to see what the availability is.
We'll find out.
All right. So appreciate Drew King joining us. Going to let him go and just kind of want to finish up with you guys. First of all, thanks for watching, joining us live here. We do this most Wednesdays. It changes a little bit during basketball season based on the schedule and all that. We'll try to do a post-game show probably maybe after the Texas A&M game here at home. We haven't been doing them lately because games are at 8 o'clock and we're not trying to go live at 12:30 in the morning. So But we'll get back and do another post-game show or two for you before the end of the year. But if you're watching here on YouTube, just subscribe to the channel, hit the like button before you leave the show. If you're listening on the podcast, which I will have up momentarily as soon as I sign off here, then leave us a nice review, say good things on social media, do all that. Regardless of whether or not you do that, please make sure to get in touch with our friend James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves. He wants to do two things. He wants to help you out with your insurance needs, and he wants to help Missouri out with its NIL initiatives on campus. And the way you do that, you go to carltoninsurance.net, or you can call James at 314-961-4800. Home insurance, auto insurance, life insurance, whatever you need. James got a team of 8, and you're always going to get a live person, and they are going to take care of you when you talk to them. When you get your insurance quote, make sure to let them know you heard about it through our show or through the website here at PowerMizzou, and he is going to donate $20 for every quote he gives out to Every True Tiger Foundation, Mizzou's preferred NIL collective. So appreciate you guys joining us late night last night, but we wanted to get in a show for you on Wednesday afternoon as usual, and plenty of stuff coming up before this weekend at Tennessee and then on to Auburn. So we'll talk to you guys next time.